Yo, Pokey26 here, and today I'm making a video about my PoE hardcore SSF solo southbound ruthless experience. So this mode is very punishing, and while that can be fun, sometimes it feels just a little too punishing. It's a type of mode where you almost feel like they want it to be designed where once a character dies, you lose basically everything. But if that's actually how they want it, why not just actually have it that way? You know? But that's not how it is. It's. I personally think the mode needs a little bit of work, but this is what we got. Now, to put some things in context, we can actually look at this leaderboard here. So currently, what is this, a few weeks into the league, there's like a level 93 guy, a few level 92s, and this is with an event technically going on, right, that people actually want to push for. And myself, I'm like on the second page now. I haven't played in a few days or more. I'm still like rank 83 with a character that's alive at level 88. And I've also lost like 5 to 7 characters or something that were around level 62 to 76 or something, which is quite a lot. I obviously put in quite a lot of time, but this is where I'm at now, and I just at some point just kind of lost interest a bit. There was also a time for like a few days where I went to hardcore SSF instead. I wasn't going to play Ruthless, but then I came back to it because I was like, maybe I could try one more build or something. So that's what I did. Well, I think I technically tried 2 more builds, but yeah, it's, you know, in the end, you can get some pretty decent stuff. You know, these rings are pretty solid. This veil, well, I'm only using this. I had good ring besides this before, but this one's also good because it works with the veil. You know, overall, I'm getting decent enough gear. You can do maps, but that's not necessarily the problem. The problem is gems, and that's honestly one of the biggest setbacks of Ruthless. So when we look here into the game, you know, now that I've actually progressed a lot to was this level 88, gems are not really a problem. I'm definitely still missing some, but as you can see, when I type in support, I have quite a lot of support gems. Some of these are technically fake, like these ones don't actually count as support gems, but most of these are actual support gems. And you know, you can see these, I have quite a lot. I have other ones equipped, I've lost quite a few on my other characters and so on. But the problem is, for hardcore SSF, unless you actually progress really far like I am now, which is, you know, level 88, I'm doing low tier red maps. Yeah, that's pretty far into the game for hardcore SSF Ruthless, right? You know, some people don't even ever make red maps, let alone red maps in hardcore on Ruthless. So some people don't even make red maps in the normal game. They quit at maps to begin with. But you know, once you actually make it pretty far, you get quite a lot, right? The problem is everywhere before that, you can make it to maps, and I've only really found a few supports, if any. I'm pretty sure I've done the first 5 acts before on one of my runs and not found like any supports, or maybe like 1 support or something. So the fact that you can do like 5 acts over leveled, taking it slow, whatever, and not even like get supports, let alone necessarily a good one or one that fits your build in any capacity at all, seems pretty bad for the game. So I think support gems is the biggest problem with Ruthless currently. particularly hardcore SSF. Now, if we're looking at Ruthless as a whole, I think the other Ruthless modes actually are probably decent. You know, if you got Trade League Ruthless, apart from aura gems like Determination and Grace, which, by the way, make it completely evident how broken the design is in terms of armor and evasion when it comes to defenses in PoE, and how the auras impact that. Apart from those gems, you can kind of get what you need in Trade League Ruthless. You know, you find melee gems, you can trade them and get your caster gems, or vice versa, etc. There's lots of ways where Trade League Ruthless is probably fine. Even hardcore Trade Ruthless is probably fine, because even hardcore Trade Ruthless, you should be able to get strong enough by having the support gems that you can reach this sort of point where I'm at now, and you know, farm your own support gems. You kind of have to take it slow, of course, but you'll eventually get there. But then you still realize the problem is the auras. So you can definitely get some of the weaker auras, or not necessarily weaker, but like damage auras. But the thing is, you don't need the damage auras. You need the defense auras. There's just not good survivability without them. Like, if you had to make a hardcore guide as simple as possible, it would literally be slap in Determination. There you go. You're done. And if not Determination, Grace. And ideally, you add Defiance Banner as well, or you add all three. Yeah, that's the guide for hardcore. If you have these, you're a lot tankier and you survive. So when it comes to hardcore SSF Ruthless, the fact that you can't get these very easily becomes a real problem. And then even when you do get them in hardcore SSF Ruthless, maybe you get them super late, they're under leveled, you still have to like grind and grind to get their levels before they're even actually that good. And you can still die to other things in the game because you're not able to get defenses everywhere necessarily. You know, maybe you're lacking in chaos res. Maybe you weren't able to get gear that fills out what you need and has good life rolls. So maybe your life pool is just low in general, even if you have the defenses. All in all, you can of course take it slow, keep grinding, eventually you'll get there, but at some point the grind is just too much, and Ruthless is very much too tedious of a mode. I mean, that's just how it is. It's just too tedious of a mode. So that brings it to the other issue, which is Atlas progression. And as you can see, I did do a decent amount of the Atlas already. Still alive. I'm showing it with keyboard and mouse right now, which I'm not as used to, because I actually play with controller generally. Which does show that you can actually do this with a controller, so that's cool. But it's, like I said, a little too overtuned in my opinion. Ally skills. So this is the other problem with Ruthless in general, not necessarily hardcore SSF, is that you literally invest every single Atlas passive point into map sustain. And even then, it's hard to sustain maps as you get farther and farther. You'll slowly progress, but you're honestly hinged around relying on Kirak for a lot of things. A good Kirak rare map can get you not only that map, but multiple other maps that you find in it. So it just feels bad to be pigeonholed that way. That being said, I do actually like there to be some grind to it. I think it's kind of cool when some of these high tier maps are rare. But I don't like that the Atlas passives have to be invested in order to even have them just be rare rather than non-existent. That's the problem. That they're non-existent without the passives, and then with the passives, they're very rare. And yeah, like you can definitely, especially early on, you can run multiple maps and not even find a map. Not even like the same tier one maps and stuff until you actually get a few Atlas passives and run enough maps. You'll eventually start sustaining whites fine. Yellows, you'll definitely have some trouble even with all of this. But yeah. So I think these are meant to be one of the ways that can help with that. But you're literally just getting this small chance for a map to be a tier higher. It's not actually increased maps in your maps. It's just that they're a tier higher map. And they have like big downsides. You're giving the monsters extra damage or extra tankability. So I actually didn't grab them this time. I had tried them before in the Ruthless with Gold event, but yeah, they're questionable. Anyways, if you look at this tree, everything's invested toward map sustain. Alva missions, Nico missions are also map sustain and a little bit extra. Or I guess Nico is somewhat more of just XP and like a bunch of loot, some currency, etc. But they did get nerfed. Like they wanted to make it even worse to run those, and then they're still used. And then the other options, Syndicate, I personally was doing it because I was running Spark. I wanted to potentially get lucky with a Diadem, which is obviously not going to happen, but maybe it could. And then the other only option realistically is like Heist, if you actually like running Heist. Every other option on the passive tree, you just can't engage with. If you're someone who likes these other league mechanics, you're like, oh, I actually quite like some ritual. I like some blight. Maybe I want to try this, or maybe I like some harvest or some expedition. You can technically spec into those, but when you do start specking into those, you're just not going to sustain maps. I'm literally taking an inefficient route through the center here and along all these 1% increased map nodes just to even get map sustain. And then I'm taking the Kirak missions and everything else. I'm taking all the pack size nodes. Like I'm investing basically every point into some form of map sustain or mechanics that help me also get maps, because like Alva has the temple that you can drop maps, particularly in the surveyor's map room. So yeah, it just becomes a problem. Now, to fix this, I'm not sure what the best route is, but I would like it where maybe map sustain in general is closer to what I currently have here, except without having to invest in this. So like make these nodes like half or even less as effective, less than half as effective for most of these. Maybe the pack size ones can stay the same. You still have to get there and invest in them. But like these increased maps found and chance for a map to be a tier higher and stuff, make that more of like in the base map drops. And then maybe these can all be a lot less effective. These can be like 0.5% increased maps or 0.25 or something. So like these can give you that little bit extra where you can actually do map sustain if you want to invest in it fully. But other people who don't want to invest in it fully, want to actually engage in other mechanics that this game has, because there is a lot of content in this game, they can do that. I think that's one of the drawbacks of Ruthless. Like, not only are you slowing down and limiting the player in Ruthless, but you're basically taking out mechanics. Like, these mechanics don't give you anything, or at least not enough that you can invest in them until you've sustained maps. And then after you've sustained maps, you can't even respec these because you don't have the currency to Maven orb them all. It's definitely a problem. Something needs to be done. They did technically do a little bit. I think they said they like lowered these a little bit. You know, these are only 8% now instead of 10 or something, or 12. I don't remember what they were exactly before. So they like upped the map chance, or up the map chance for higher tier or something like that, but then lowered these. So they did a little bit. They do realize it's actually a problem, but I think they need to do a lot more. Because there should be a way where maps are still kind of rare as they are, but where they're rare without having to fully invest in it. So you can invest in the other mechanics and actually do things, you know? Because these other mechanics don't even necessarily drop maps. They drop whatever's related to the mechanic. You know, if you want to invest in Metamorph for catalysts or Blight for oils, you should be able to do that, but you can't even do that in Ruthless. Instead, you just have to luck into the very low chance that whatever one appears, you get whatever comes from it, and hope it's good, and that's it. But being able to actually invest in it would be nice. I think it would open up Ruthless to still be very difficult to progress, because you can, like I said, you can have it where it's still hard to progress up the Atlas without needing these, and allow the player to engage in a mechanic or two on the side that actually makes it more enjoyable. So that's definitely a problem I find. That the Atlas passives need more of a rework. They are obviously already reworked for Ruthless, but it's not enough. Like I feel pigeonholed to grab these because you're just running tons of maps. So you get a bunch of Sulfite, you get a bunch of Intelligence, and you just get Master missions, Kirak missions, Alva missions. I also took Chun missions, but you can skip those. You can just go for Nico, Delve missions. It makes it a very uninteresting part of the game. Yeah, talking more about the Ruthless aspects. Yeah, out of all my characters, this is where I'm sitting at. I obviously have a decent amount of some currency, but nothing's exceptional. You definitely find some things. I haven't found Divine or Exalt. Exalt would obviously be amazing for this if I luck into move speed. But, you know, you got some stuff to work with. I have used a decent amount of Jewelers, Fusings, and Chromes already. Some Alts and Augs and Chance Orbs as well. But I don't know. The currency might be okay-ish as is. I think the main drawback is there really needs to still be mechanics like crafting. I'm not sure if this is a popular opinion for Ruthless, but the fact that there's no crafting at all just makes it very uninteresting. Like, why is every piece of gear just as is, as you find it? And then only after you've grinded a lot and a lot can you even start getting links for them. Of course, you don't even need the links early because you don't even have the gems for it. But once you do, you end up having to use, as you can see, just about all your Fusings and Jewelers to get them done properly. And I don't know. I think the fact that the currency is already low like this to get your gear to look like this, like I don't even have, this four linked, although I don't necessarily need it four linked. I don't have this good links, whatever. I don't have my scepters linked fully. I could definitely have duration linked with molten shell, for instance, as well. But the fact that you can't even get your gear necessarily properly done as you'd like makes me wonder why they don't just allow crafting. Because crafting, while it can of course be a very powerful thing, does have a cost. The crafting in the base game for good crafts was like alchemies and chaos orbs, and it was multiple of them for a lot of these crafts. And as you can see, I don't even have those. I've used maybe four or so chaos orbs and like quite a few alchemies. But if I'm using them on gear to craft stuff, then I'm not getting map progression. So I do think crafting could easily be put in the game and still be viable. Like it gives this extra level of what you can do in Ruthless while the game is still very much a challenge. I don't know. And there's multiple ways they could do it. They could have it so, a lot of crafts have like three different tiers you can do. Like there's three different tiers of resistances you can do. What if they only make it so you can do the lowest tier, but that you can at least do that tier? You can only craft the 16 to 20 res on a gear or whatever it is instead of the 21 to 28 and the 29 to 35 or those type of things. If you can at least craft the lowest type on a piece of gear, and if they want to increase the price, maybe it costs alchemy orbs instead of like one transmute like it does in the base game to do that res craft. Okay, I think it should be doable, but still difficult, and I think that would make it a lot more interesting. Like if I could craft a 10 to 14% move speed on these boots, but it cost me like a couple alchemies or a couple chaos, I think I should be able to do something like that. When you find a decent piece of gear and it just needs that one extra line, even if it's a mediocre line you're adding, you should be able to do something like that. It's a whole element of the game that's removed and makes it feel bad to play when crafting is in the base game and it's just not on here. I think there's definitely ways to work that in and still have Ruthless be a huge challenge. Like you're not going to be leveling up through the axe with crafting on all your gear to cap out your res because you're not going to have currency for it. But when you get to this point late game, you should be able to have some way to use some of these currencies in a meaningful way on a high-end piece of gear that maybe is just missing one line you want. You would still be missing the John crafts. Like I said, you could limit what the level of craft is. You could have the high cost for it. There's definitely ways to do it. Will they do it? I don't know. But I think that would make it a lot more enjoyable to play Ruthless, a lot more to aim for, because right now, Ruthless is more of just luck in to some uniques, and that's your gear. A lot of your gear is going to be some uniques, right? Like especially belts or amulets, even rings. These are commonly going to be unique. So you look at my belt, this is so bad. I'm only using it mostly for the armor, right? Because there's no determination aura. So map sustain, I think, or I should say map sustain related to Atlas passives needs to be changed. Map sustain itself can stay the same, but it shouldn't require full Atlas infested to do it, which should be an easy change. Being able to craft, even if it's limited crafts, high cost, etc., I think that should be changed. And then defenses in general, but maybe this is just the whole thing and not even Ruthless, needs something changed where determination and grace aren't like, or determination in particular isn't like required to be able to do anything, you know? Like when I'm running through maps right now, I'm running very slowly and I'm just, you know, spamming spark, shooting stuff from around the corner or from far away, etc. If something comes at me, I'm getting out with my quicksilvers, my little mediocre fake movement skill quick step, decoy totem, which by the way, I think stuff like the fact that you actually use decoy totem now in Ruthless makes for fun gameplay because you're using things that you don't use in the base game, or at least most people don't use. Whereas here you're like, okay, I can actually get some value out of this. This decoy totem has saved me so many times and got me so much value. But in the main game, I don't even use that. It's an extra socket, an extra click that just is not worth it compared to just flame dashing away. So like stuff like that's cool. There's definitely some cool things with Ruthless. But those few changes I mentioned are literally what stops tons of players from ever playing. People don't want to grind for gems to make their skills even usable, because even if they get those gems, they're not necessarily the right gems. They might not have the sockets because you don't have currency to set the sockets properly. It's very boring. And then you get to late game and you're like, well, I guess I'll just try to luck into a unique because they're best in slot for a very, very long time, or potentially forever because there's no crafting at all. So that's why I think crafting could be cool, even if it's limited crafting. Like I said, definitely ways to make it better. Yeah, that's most of my hardcore SSF Ruthless experience. I mentioned at the start, I do think Ruthless in non-hardcore SSF is not too bad. You see people like Creparian having quite a lot of fun in Ruthless SSF non-hardcore, for instance, and I can see that. I think that's all right because dying isn't like the huge penalty. Like you lose XP, but you don't lose all your gems, and that's the problem. Is Ruthless feels like a mode that feels like it would be advertised primarily towards the small community of like hardcore players, hardcore SSF players in particular. You know, like what a lot of the streamers are and stuff. But it's just not fit for them. So where does that leave Ruthless? There's just a lot of people that don't play it. You saw in this event they had, a lot of the top streamers didn't play it. The one that, or you know, the game just crashed. That's weird. We shall load the game back up so I don't have a random black screen. But you saw there's very few big streamers. There are some streamers out there who did play, but you know, like Al Kaiser, for instance, he played, and what happened with Al Kaiser is didn't pay attention and put in a reflect map and died to the first creepy hit. It's like, wow, it's probably just a case of not paying attention enough in Ruthless to care and look at it properly. So, yeah. Definitely some problems with Ruthless, but beyond all that, beyond the things I think that should be fixed, I think there's a lot of value in the mode in certain aspects of it. I think the lower drop rates, the harder map progression, like some of these concepts are pretty fun. It's nice to, you know, grind a little bit for some of it, for to feel rewarded when you get certain items, etc. But the problem is, of course, partly what I said is Like I find something like this, right? I'm like, wow, this is insane. You know, I found a pair of boots and I'm like, this is crazy, right? These lines are really good. I could use this for a long time. And then you realize you're in Ruthless, there's no crafting, and this insane item you actually found is actually just not usable as is. Because you can't do anything with it. It's just stuck as is. I can't craft it. The only thing I can do is like exalt it and hope it hits move speed, which it might not even do. And then it might not even be a good move speed roll, even if it does hit. And then it's like, oh wait, I have made 5 or so level 70 characters and like a level 88 character that this is on right now, and I still don't have an exalt, let alone, you know, divine orbs or whatever. You know, I don't even have an exalt to even try. So I think that's a problem. But you know, there's other pieces. You know, you look at this, like, yeah, that's pretty cool. You know, it doesn't have life, but it got double res, it got decent evasion ES, it's got 30 move speed. I'm like, yeah, this is a sick find. Whereas in the normal game, you find this and it's like, I guess this is not bad because you can craft on it, but it's, you know, you can find a lot of boots like this where you can craft on it and fix what you need, and you have the currency for crafting. I don't know. It definitely feels rewarding to find some of these. It's just I don't even know how to describe it properly, but there's just something missing still in Ruthless. Weapons are a problem. It definitely hinders some builds because you're like reliant on the weapon actually being good. I guess that's one thing to talk about is the build diversity. Build diversity is very bad, partly because of supports not being there. You know, you see a lot of people stuck with the same builds because they're just the builds that shine without supports. Like Vortex, Creeping Frost, Cold Snap. Why does it shine without supports? Well, apart from its damage actually just being good as is, you have 3 skills damaging at the same time. Whereas you look at someone else with Sunder or Bone Shatter, they just have that. They have Totem, I guess, as well. That provides a little bit, but yeah, it's mostly that main skill. And it's like, I don't know. Supports, in my opinion, you should be able to at least get a basic support from like after you defeat Katava, maybe, or maybe, you know, Lily's quest on the beach in Act 6. What if the support gem you normally find on the beach when you first start the game in the base game, what if that just appears at Act 6, you know? Or like there's like a couple different choices. You can choose between momentum and chance to bleed, or, you know, whatever the case is between classes for what fits the classes. Like some generic mediocre gem. I think something like that could be cool, even if it's just one support gem and it's like the same support gem, so people can't like grind to Act 6 over and over to get multiple, which by the way isn't even necessarily worth it. I think things like that can improve the game while still the game's going to be challenging, right? If you're running, you know, if you're running a melee build and you got your melee skill plus chance to bleed, and that's it, it's still going to be a challenge because you still need to find the weapon that you're not necessarily going to find. You still need other support gems, better support gems. Definitely ways to improve, like make the game slightly easier, I guess you could say, or less tedious, less of a grind, and still fun and a very difficult challenge and still a niche game mode. So yeah.
Greetings. Hello.
Refilling flasks, as you can see. Yeah, I have to talk to like
Hello.
a certain vendor, which by the way, if I talk to Lily here, it doesn't refill my flask. You have to actually talk to the right one.
Hello. Keep
I don't know, stuff like that sucks too. Those things are just archaic, serve no purpose. Like, I don't know what their thoughts are on mechanics like that or why they're in the game, but things like that also just need to go. There's literally no reason for it other than to create extra tediousness to everything, right? Like, even if they want it so that when you teleport out of the map you can't enter the teleport right away, some people put their character right next to where the portals are anyways. They use the small map device, the 6 portals really close together. They have this character that refills their flasks right next to the portals. Like, they're losing, less than a second each time they have to do that. So it's not even like it's a big drawback or anything. It's just an annoyance. So I don't know why annoyances like that are put into the game. It doesn't create anything fun. Whereas Ruthless, where it's instead of these annoyances, it's more of the scarcity or limitedness in what you can do or progression and stuff, or the extra grind. I think those are good mechanics, but this refilling flask thing, it just doesn't make sense. It's archaic. It's a waste of time. Anyways, overall, that's my Ruthless experience, I would say. I don't know if there's much else in particular to comment on, but yeah. The problem is, Ruthless in general, I would say there's a lot of good things I like, probably more good things than bad things I like about it. It's just that the bad things hinder the mode so much and just make it not enjoyable at all. Too tedious, too much of a grind, too much punishment if you die, if it's hardcore, etc. And too reliant on finding certain things. Too reliant on lucking into some uniques like this Winter Heart or Belt of the Deceiver, Lahoop of All Ring, because rares are just not good enough. Rares have too much variability in what they can have, and you can't craft on them. So I think providing that little bit of crafting, just the low level crafts, maybe with a high cost, I think that would be cool. Just do something, make it a little bit better, make it a little bit more accessible, and it'll still be a very fun, difficult challenge. You'll still have to grind. Then they could even leave the XP gain as is, because people are not reaching level 100 anyways. So if it's that little bit more accessible, maybe people actually start to see an end of the road where they can be like, I can maybe actually reach 100 if I'm grinding a ton, because they have a slightly better start with being able to do things with their gear, being able to invest in different mechanics instead of full map progression investment, things like that. So I would say Ruthless is promising, but as is. Not to sound too harsh, but it's kind of trash as is. At least hardcore SSF Ruthless. The other Ruthless modes are okay. You still have the drawback of, even in Trade League, needing to find Determination or Grace at some point, but if you're on non-hardcore, you can brute force it through even without those, and you'll eventually get them if there's enough players. So, like, those are fine, but hardcore SSF Ruthless, I think hardcore SSF Ruthless shows just the true limits of Ruthless, and how without these other things like trade or being able to die and keep playing, the mode is a bit too limited in ways. and I hope to see it improved in the future, because it would be fun if those few things are changed.